YouTube. Welcome to the Faith-Based Workplace YouTube channel. Y'all know me, I'm your host, Solomon Savoy. I have a special guest today, Tiffany Castagno. I think I said it right. I think I might have messed it up this time, but she's coming here. The title for this one is How to Handle Narcissist Abuse at Work, and it's gonna be from a human resources perspective. That's what Tiffany specializes in, so I had to get someone on that I knew that could just bring the fire and bring the heat. And I consider her assistant. So I'm gonna let her introduce herself. That way you know how to get in touch with her. You know how I do. We'll do the introduction at the end also. So Tiffany, go ahead.
Thank you for having me, Solomon. I echo that. You are like a brother. I've not had a brother, so you're like one of the brothers that I just never had. So thank you for having me and being just awesome and walking in faith with me. Really, really appreciate you. So I'm Tiffany Castagno. I am CEO of CEPHR. That is an acronym for Cultivating the Evolution of Professional HR. And so what I do is I help small to medium-sized enterprises, nonprofits, startups, help really them build their infrastructure and scale. So building that out, policies, procedures, what tools do you have? Maybe you have an HR department and it's lean, or they're more junior, or you just don't have enough staff. So that's something that I can definitely help with. Or maybe you have someone functioning like a CFO who's functioning as HR, or you don't have an HR department at all. Those are things that I can help with strategy for my clients. Love what I do. So you can find me on LinkedIn. That is where I am very, very active most days. You can also give me a call if you'd like at 412-990-1361. Or you can also email me at tcastagno@cephrconsulting.com.
Nice. That was a great introduction. I have to work on my introduction skills now. Okay, let's just get right into this one. I think this is a good topic, and like I told you, we actually discussed yesterday. It's so many people I'm hearing talk about, how do they deal with this at work, and when it's harassment or I guess most of it is harassment, or if it's a narcissist. We talk about narcissists on this channel a lot, but it don't always have to be a narcissist. It could just be a bad situation, and how do you deal with it? So so I just want to get right into it. So when dealing with harassment at work, and the person harassing, and you didn't told them to stop, whether it's a woman or a female, whichever way, however you want to take it. What would be the next steps? I guess once you didn't told the person, hey, look, I don't like that kind of talk, or they didn't touch you, or whatever the case is, what would be your next steps?
Yes, great question. And I love that we're having this conversation because, like I said, I've been in HR a long time, over a decade, and this is very, very common. People don't know often where to turn or what the next step should be. And some people, I'll get into like, what if you told them, this no, or leave me alone, or you've had this conversation. But on the other side of that is people who aren't even comfortable doing that. Like, what are their resources? So I'll start there. So if you're not comfortable, you should talk to your leaders. There's some behavior, some conduct. People are throwing out racial slurs or sexual innuendos, whatever that looks like for you that makes you feel uncomfortable. People just like putting pressure on you unduly or not cooperating with you, making your work life miserable. And some of those can be narcissists. I know you're my resident expert on that, Solomon. So please just tell someone. So whether you pull a friend, now leadership is probably best because they have the authority to do something. If you tell your colleague or your friend at work, they may or may not report that on your behalf. You tell me in HR, which I would also recommend, I have a duty to act, as does leadership. They have a duty to do something about that and to make sure that people are not working in these toxic, hostile workplaces. Now, if you did tell somebody, if you did tell the person who is bothering you, harassing you, getting on your last nerves, they're doing things. Now, there's personality conflicts, and then there's actual harassment and hostile work environments. There's complete differences there. I will say that, and there are legal parameters around them. I'm an attorney. I don't play one on TV, but working in HR, we partner closely with legal, and so having practiced for a while, I know that there are some legal definitions. These terms tend to get thrown around loosely in the workplace. But if you did tell that person that you're uncomfortable and they continue that, again, go to HR, go to your leader. And at this point, really, this is not a scenario where you necessarily want to be telling your friend. At this point, you really need someone who has some authority and some influence and power to be able to help support you. you, because organizations, once they know about this, you've now put them on notice. That person who is harassing you or whatever that situation is, you've now put them on notice as well. So if they don't stop, that can become a situation of harassment for them. If the organization knows and they did not do anything, that can become a problem for them, and they run a lot of risk without handling it. On top of that, afterwards, if you've asked this person to stop and all of a sudden, let's say it's a boss and they're telling you can't get a promotion because you didn't go out on a date with them. Well, guess what? Now that's retaliation too for you reporting a concern. So you in workplaces, you are also protected from any retaliation because you shared a concern. And so those are things that I want people to really keep in mind. There's also the employee assistance program. So let's say you told somebody about it, you don't really feel like they're doing anything, and I hope that's not your HR folks. It should not be HR folks, because we are there to protect, as leaders are too. But sometimes I recognize that, one, in some organizations, people still don't know who their HR person is. Two, maybe they're not comfortable with that person because the HR person's new, or this employee who's reporting this is new, or there are some details. Listen, I've done this for a long time. Details get graphic around some of these things, and people don't always feel comfortable. If you're a female, you touched on this a little bit before, if you're female and the person doing this is a male, especially if it's your boss, you're not going to be that comfortable necessarily to share that. So you can use your employer's free benefit. They're typically free of employee assistance program, or you can call EAP. They have a host of resources available for you. So that's some of the stuff off the top of this noggin here. I know I just rattled off a lot.
No, that's great information, especially the end with the EAP. I think a lot of people don't realize that they can go to EAP and it's a free service at the companies. I know from the safety background, like we talked yesterday, I had to, certain employees, you had to point them in the right direction. I'll say, I'm not HR by any stretch. Well, I have you on here. I'm not a human resources guru or anything, but you had to point them in the direction of being, hey, look, you call EAP, it's confidential. This is for you, no matter if you need help with, whatever, especially if there's harassment going on and you don't trust the people. And that's kind of the situations I've seen in the past, like what happens when, like you brought up, when you don't trust the people that you work with. And I mean, I'm talking about the human resources or your supervisor or whatever, and you're at a company level, but let's say you're a global company. It's like, what is your next step then?
Yeah, so that's.
And so I don't trust the people I work with, but
That's definitely, that I will say, as an HR professional, I've experienced it too. Your HR, you have the complaint and you have concerns. You share those concerns up your chain and you don't feel supported, or you're not sure what your next step is. Now, what I will say, and I'm not advocating necessarily for people to do this, but I want it to be known that you do have rights. So if you're not getting what you need, maybe there's a legal department within the organization that you can at least get some thoughts on. Now, excuse me, their best interest is going to be for the organization, but at the same time, when people don't have a voice, that's when they will go external. That's when they will find an external counsel to come in and share these stories with and these experiences that they've had in the workplace, and where that can turn into some risk. They may go to their local agency, employment agency, not as in staffing, but their local agency, the words are escaping me right now, for protection in terms of harassment. And they may go to EEOC, which is federal, and at that level. Now, I will say, at minimum, employers, you don't want this, because even if it's unsubstantiated, you don't want to open Pandora's box to that, because and even if you get to a situation where maybe you've made it all the way to court, and these things take time, they take effort, you're going to spend a lot of legal fees, and at minimum, you're going to have to start going through files. People are, may find out about it that you don't want to find out, or your brand is at risk, your bottom line, and that's a lot of cost in time alone. And even to start that, you're going to have to prepare a statement, and it's just not a good situation. Then you have to make sure that your leaders and everyone else in the organization, that this stuff is kept confidential and that that's not leaking. And also that that your leaders know about retaliation, and people know because it's our first inclination as humans a lot of times to retaliate. So it's just a whole tangled mess. Just do the right thing and let people be supported in the workplace so that they don't have a reason. You can have a hotline that gives an impartial way. So that's a way for employees to call that line, and then they can have that information out there with somebody who's neutral, who's third party, who can really help support through this situation. And at times there may even be an investigation.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So it almost sounds like the employer is, they can get in a lot of trouble if they don't follow the proper channels. Also, it won't just be the employee, having to worry about retaliation. It's almost like what you're saying. The employer can actually get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, Solomon, because one thing too that's making me think of is that if you make a good faith effort to report something, and maybe let's say it's not even happening to you, it might be your colleague and you're reporting it. But if I'm Tiffany and I'm reporting to you, Solomon, as my leader, this, Jim over here is making me uncomfortable. He passes by my desk every day. He's making comments about my top and my clothes and how I look. And I'm just very, very uncomfortable. And I've told you this over and over and nothing is done. That's a risk point. And so some employees I've heard, they get very skeptical around this, or they get skittish because they're afraid, well, what if I report this and this person gets fired? What if I report this and it makes me look bad, or I look like, the rat of the group? Or what if I report this and it's unfounded, in the way that it comes out is unsubstantiated? Am I going to have a scar against me in the organization? And am I going to get in trouble if they can't find anything? The answer, and I can't speak for every organization, but the answer should be no, is what I'm going to say, because you report that in good faith because you deserve to work in a healthy work environment. And so we can't determine what's going to happen with those folks, nor can anybody disclose that because it's on a need to know confidential basis. But I would say don't be discouraged by wondering what people are going to do or what's going to happen. You have to do the right thing at the end of the day. And if it makes you that uncomfortable, that's your barometer of whether to report it.
That's good information. See, I'm learning. That's what I like. I like where I can learn something new. So that's what you're doing. You teach me something new, and hopefully everybody else they end up watching this will be able to learn something from it and take, because we all, I think, have questions, but if you don't know about a particular thing, you're like, who do I ask? So it's like, but bringing out something like this and having you on the show is like, okay, she done said a whole wealth of things that I can go through and be like, okay, Tiffany said this, let me try this in my company, and I think that's good. I do have another question though. What do you do? Let's say you dated someone at work, right? So man and woman dating at work, and then y'all break up. I didn't usually go. They break up. Situation occurred. They break up. But then he's harassing her. Let's say she puts in a transfer to go to a whole different, part of the company. I'm talking about a whole other city. Don't tell him nothing about it or anything like that. But he shows up 2 or 3 weeks later, harassing her and telling everybody things. What is she supposed to do if he's continuing to follow her around, this big company? I mean, what should she do in that case? When she had told people already, or she don't, I ain't gonna say she told, but she don't trust the human resources again, because they buddy with her supervisor that used to be her boyfriend. I mean, what are you supposed to do?
Wow. Well, that's a doozy. I would say first, it's concerning that these things happen, right? Like domestic violence and stalking have become, we're humans and we bring that into the workplace with us. So we have to, again, keep these healthy environments and protect our employees. So I've seen those situations where in the same company, someone's stalking someone. We have to be made aware, we being HR in the organization, leadership, so that we can address it. Not that saying you have to tell all your personal business, but if we don't know, we can't help put protocols in place, whether that's security or, having a restraining order on file or any of those things. It's helpful to let somebody know that if possible and if you're comfortable. But for sure, if someone is in the scenario you described, if they're stalking you, they're showing up miles later, that's a whole lot of effort, and things need to be handled from a legal perspective, a law enforcement perspective there, it sounds like. But I would say, usually a lot of times you see that those individuals start being separated in their work. Maybe one works one shift, the other one works another, so that may be possible. And sometimes those orders from the law enforcement or the court will dictate they can't be so in so many feet of this person, or this and that. So I think that's one thing. But certainly if somebody's following you around to location to location, I would hope that HR is not complicit in these matters, because as professionals we do have a duty to, like I said, we protect the organization from risk and mitigating risk. Can't prevent it, but we can try to mitigate it. We also have the role of employees and keeping them engaged and helping support alongside leadership in the organization. And then, with the leaders, we have a duty to support them as well. So it's this threefold hat that we always wear. But as HR, you should not be, we're not in business, none of us, employees alike, leaders, we're not really at work to make friends. If you happen to in the process, great. But HR professionals should not be covering things up or hiding things. Neither should leadership or employees. So if that's occurring and you learn about that, sometimes there's an ethics hotline. Like I said, some organizations may have attorneys. You have a right to go seek your own personal attorney, or these agencies who are designed to help out with these things at the state and local level, as well as federal. So that sounds scary.
Yeah, it is. And you brought up a good point. So I didn't know that you can I know about the, calling the police, but what you said was, maybe having people work different shifts. I think that's actually smart. Or having, them be so many feet apart. I never would have thought of that. I heard about it, of course, in restraining orders, and stuff like that, but I never heard about it in the work. That's actually very interesting, though, that you can do that and have them, hey, you can't approach me within 200 feet or whatever the case is. And plus you got to work different shifts. I think that would actually allow that person, whether it's male or female, depending on who's being harassed, to be a little bit more comfortable in the work setting, knowing that they won't see this person. I think at the end of the day, to me, when you see this person all the time and they're harassing you, it makes work that much stressful. I think when you don't have to see them, or they can't come within a certain amount of feet, I think you can, start to live a little. You still might have, where you end up seeing them sort of, but so far as them coming up to you, all that'll be, put to the side. That won't happen. So that's actually, I learned something. See, I'm learning something else again. So
I aim to add value. I think, the other piece is training, right? And making sure that your team, some people write off training and some people do training, but it's like check the box. And we're not really making sure that it's applied. So sexual harassment is one of those trainings that people joke like, oh, we have to do our sexual harassment training online or go get in this room. And maybe not right now during COVID, but we have to do these things. And they are that important. That is why your organizations are having you do these trainings. And now you'll see a lot around like active shooter as well. You're hearing more about preventing domestic violence. Some states have actual laws around that and benefits that employees can get for that. I know Illinois is one of those, or I don't know if it's Illinois or the state of, if it's the state of Illinois or state of Chicago, but there are definite different laws per state. And some of that is governed by federal law, but you definitely want to make sure that those things are happening in your organization, because not everybody knows what these things look like. There's also like, was it welcome? Was the behavior welcome? So if we joke around all the time and it's part of our culture to use certain language, but that offends somebody else, that can be a problem. And if somebody, maybe we're cool, but that other person is offended, that's not going to be a good look. Or maybe in the case of the person who was dating somebody, maybe you were dating and now you're not. Hello, this is why we don't date people at work, because now we have a potential sexual harassment situation. And whether or not it happened, that person might be angry enough and have some motivation to now say that you've done something that you haven't. So the other piece I would say is policies and procedures. So while HR has evolved a long way, we're not just the policy police. Those procedures and those policies, those handbooks will save you. Both they act as guidelines for the organization, but also for employees, because if you have a policy in there that says you can't date your direct report, and please don't do that. It's tasteless. It is not, there can be favoritism. The legal risk is just over the top. And it's just not the right thing to do. So, and in those cases, some companies will say, if you are going to enter in one of these relationships, we're okay with that, but that's personal choice. You do that, but we need to know. So you have to know what those policies and procedures say, that you're not in violation of it, because the company might be like, all right, you're the supervisor. Well, we're going to have, one of you is going to have to move areas, or it may be completely frowned upon to date at all. And, that's just not, it's not usually a good look. So I discourage that at all points. And please be honest about it. It doesn't pay to lie to your company. I've seen people get terminated over and over again because they thought they were going to shield something. What's in the dark will always come to light, my friends.
I definitely agree with that last statement. Yeah, what you do in the dark definitely will come to the light. And see, I know in the military, they're real strict. They frown upon, people like higher ranking dating lower ranking people, even though they're the same age. They don't care nothing about that. It's the rank structure, which is a reason behind it. So at companies, I've seen it, where they have that rule in place, but it's not a rule in place that doesn't make any sense. Like, it's in the book, but nobody really follows it. So it's not until something happens, then, like you said, then that's when it's like, crap. Then all this other stuff comes down. I'm like, well, it was a rule. But yeah, but they've been dating for 3 years and never said anything upper management knew. So it's kind of weird. I guess that goes back to, like, me coming from a safety background, I try to stick to the rules as much as I can. Don't bend and break them. It's just they're not supposed to break or bend. It's the rule is the rule for a reason. It's in place for a reason. And usually, another question that I have. So what do you do when you're working at a smaller company? I call it a mom and pop, and you kind of like I guess you're the person on the outside looking in, however you want to say it, but you had a mom and pop company, a small company, and you're dealing with these, let's say, what is a narcissist, messing with you at work, and you didn't tell someone, but they are family. So what are you supposed to do in a situation like that when it's a small company?
Ooh, good old nepotism, huh? You threw that one at me. I think that, so there are obviously state and local laws, federal laws that govern a lot of these, how workplaces need to act. But first and foremost, we should be doing the right thing for the right reasons, like I said before. But in some cases, they may be these mom and pop shops, or they are just smaller than needing to follow certain laws or adhere to some. They don't apply to them, and that's just the reality of what it is. What I would say is try that avenue, try to at least approach if you're comfortable, and at least see if you can work it out. Some of these things are just misunderstandings. I'm not advocating for any poor behavior by any means, but that's why it's important to talk these things out. Maybe directly go to the person if you can and if you're comfortable. If not, use the resources that we've been talking about here, Solomon and I. And so I think, at the end of the day, if you're that uncomfortable, it's not getting resolved, or you just don't, it's impacting you mentally, physically, emotionally, I would say that's very toxic. And I would say to remove yourself from that situation, and brush up your resume and get out.
I'm laughing, but it's the truth. I mean, yeah, you're right. That's and I used to, when I was back in corporate America, I always kept my resume updated for that simple reason. If something happens, okay, I can just drop my resume off. You got all these different places you can go, but you're right. I mean, sometimes you can't fix the company. The company been that way sometimes. Not get me wrong, I'm saying that, but coming from safety or just anybody, you try to go in and stamp on it and fix the company. But all companies don't want fixing. They want to run the same way they've been running, especially when it's a family operated company. So with that being said, maybe you're just not a good fit. It's like trying to put a square in a circle peg or whatever. It's not going to work. So you might, like you say, you might want to just push off and go to the next company. My next question, and pretty much the last question, what do you do, I guess, when you're at a company and they're playing politics, and they're playing politics? Now, you done been there, what is your first there, you've been there for a while, but you can see them playing politics, and you didn't came across, like, you kind of know what a narcissist is. You notice how the upper management, when I say upper management, this is how the president of the company is operating. Okay, so it's coming from the top. So you're like, wait, hold on. I mean, what are you supposed to do in those situations?
It's so intimidating, and it's so unfortunate, but this is the world we live in, that people are still doing that. I think we're coming a long way, especially with COVID. I think it's shifted some mindset and some energy in the right way. It's a lot of the work that I do to build these strong brands and cultures, because just because you're doing something and maybe the law doesn't say that you have to adhere to certain things. Folks will go on Glassdoor, they will blast you with negative reviews. You don't want that. That's expensive. There is opportunity cost left on the table. You just don't want that. But I think, politics, they always come into play in the workplace, and it varies depending on the size of the organization. But and people, I've been told, like, oh, just, you have to know the politics. You have to play the politics. This person didn't get promoted because they weren't politics. Well, does that really serve us well? And that's not an inclusive environment either. So if these organizations want to do that, I will say that they will eventually get left behind by their competitors, because no one wants to work in that type of environment. And like we said just now, people shouldn't brush up that resume. You should always keep your resume fresh. Not saying that you have to look to be leaving, but you should always be, practicing interviewing. You should always be having your skills fresh and your resume the most up to date. Because that way, like you said, if you need to pull that and you need to have it ready, it's less stressful at the time. But there's always politics in the workplace. At the end of the day, just come to work to do the right thing. And that includes leadership in these organizations. If you want a sustainable, engaged culture, you have to treat people right, or they will leave you. And guess what? When they leave, they're telling all their friends about you too. So good luck attracting top talent, and if you do, they're not going to stay with you. You have to treat people right at the end of the day. We are humans first before our jobs.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah, it's almost like now compared to years back. To me, it's almost like you got 1 foot in the door and 1 foot out. Almost. I mean, now if you had a good company, yeah, you had a good company and everything's great, and when you walk in, they throw confetti. I don't know. I mean, yeah, that's fine.
It happens.
I mean, you had a great company, but you and I both know most companies are not like that. They had a day-to-day struggle, and they have these leaders that's, to me, they just in a leadership position. But again, it's a brother of somebody or a friend of somebody. Are they really good leaders? No, they probably not. They just give them that title, and they take that title, let it go to their head, and next thing you know, you got this narcissist in charge of everybody else, and you wonder why your turnover rate is high. So yeah, it's
use of power.
Yeah, your resume has to stay brushed up, like we said, and then you have to know where you need to go, like you mentioned EAP and things like that. So yeah, you have to. You got to know that human resources hopefully is on your side, and you can go to them in confidence about an issue. Because I know some companies I worked at, HR wasn't on your side, not even a little bit. Not I'm talking about at the company level. Now I knew from safety, I knew that I can go to corporate, and I know I can get some act right out of somebody. So that's what I used to do. I'm like, y'all don't want to listen. So what I do, I would send an email to that HR person, including her supervisor and my supervisor, which is the director of safety. And I promise within 2 days, some things, every time it happened, we got some act right out of some people. I'm like, we can go to corporate, which I don't know, that ain't what y'all want. So, you gotta be, sometimes you just gotta, bluff them. And hopefully, they'll do what they need to do. And then sometimes you have a company where the HR is like you, and they really, in tune with what they're supposed to be doing and love what they do. And they neutral, like you said, they're not on either side. Because when they're on either side, it's bad. They're on the employee side or the employer side, it's not good. But like you said, you play neutral. I think that's the best way to be. That's in safety and human resource and probably a bunch of other jobs. So.
Absolutely. I love that you said you pulled up and get some act right. Absolutely. Please get your act right together. I think that's so important. And I love that you touched on the different avenues, even within an organization, too, outside of what we already talked about. Like, you can email the chain of command is a thing. And some organizations are very rooted in their structure and their traditions and conservative nature. That is the thing with them. And you have to do this. You can't go around me. Go to who makes you comfortable at the end of the day. Report it versus sitting in that silence and toxicity. But like you said, there may be another corporate office. Maybe you work at a field office or a branch or a location. And that's, you only have that site representative. We all report to somebody at the end of the day. So even myself as an entrepreneur, I report to my clients and my stakeholders. We all have someone in some capacity to report to. So thank you for adding on to that too. You can come on into the HR office with me.
That's a whole different ball game for me, right?
Collaboration. No, this is great.
Yeah, this is a good. I like this. I'm definitely going to bring you back because I think we covered a lot of stuff. Don't get me wrong, but I just know there's a lot more stuff that people want to know. And then maybe the next time we can do maybe a live or something. That way we can get some people in and ask questions that they want to ask. So I think that might be a good look, 2021. Hey, start off with, another show, that we can, like I said, do a live and bring people in. So, once again, I'll let you reintroduce yourself or, tell people how they can get in touch with you. That way they'll know, people forget sometimes. So.
No, I love that. And it bears repeating, not because it's me, but we learn through repetition, many of us. So again, if you just caught us on, the tail end of this, or if you're catching on replay, I'm Tiffany Castagno. I am CEO of CEPHR. So I'm an HR consulting firm partnering with organizations and individuals nationally to help support your infrastructures, develop your career, and really just make the best brand and culture. I am huge on making the best potential and making us the best version of themselves. And that includes me. I do the work too. So I can be found on LinkedIn. You can email me at tcastagno@cephrconsulting.com, or feel free to give me a call, 412-990-1361. And I'll look forward to seeing you again, Solomon, in the new year, and to maybe hearing from some other folks. I love the idea of a question and doing live. I think that can be very beneficial when we're talking about real life scenarios.
Nice. Once again, y'all know who I am, Solomon Savoy, faith-based workplace YouTube channel. I had fun talking to Tiffany. And like I said, I look forward to doing it again. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe.